And you work in the men's health space. So it's
Men's
kind
health
of,
space, yeah.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What got you into it, why you do it, and obviously why are we having this conversation today? Because something's kind of intrigued you to come along to that event we sponsored a few weeks back now.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have a master's in human nutrition that I got back in University of Sheffield a while back, and since then I've worked on various men's health projects around the UK, mostly focusing on nutrition and the kind of science of nutrition, how to help people eat healthier and get a bit more active, get moving, look at stress, look at sleep as well. But I've definitely transitioned more recently to looking at the behavioural side of things, behaviour change, mindset and approach, because I think a lot of blokes, and what I'm really interested in focusing on is helping blokes actually make change, because, and that's where my passions lie, definitely, because at the end of the day, we know we all should be eating healthier, we know we should be sleeping a bit better, getting a bit more active, drinking less alcohol, all that good stuff. But I think what a lot of us struggle with is that doing it. It's making those habits in the first place and then keeping them in place, making them stick, building those routines and actually creating that sustainable change. So I've transitioned over the last couple of years to focus more on the behavior change side of things. So that's definitely where my area of interest is. And I think it's a lot of the support that's needed is more so around behavior change rather than providing education and awareness, in my opinion.
100%. That's quite interesting you say that, because my day job's working in finance. And I used to be followed a similar kind of path to what you've done, but on kind of my side of the fence, so to speak, in that for me, it was all about the results initially, and they're kind of looking at the data and all the rest of it. But the behavior part of it is the bit that isn't really explored. And it's exactly the same with you, because, like you said, everybody knows if you're going to be financially secure, 20% of your money goes away every month, or you put money into a savings, whatever it is. Like, these rules exist, we can all find them. But a lot of the time, it's the implementation, the accountability, and the following through that's the challenge.
I think one of the issues is there's so much overlap between different industries, or however you want to frame it, whether it's kind of financial coaching, whether it's health coaching, whether it's specific to nutrition. People argue over the little details of, this percent of your money should be spent on this, and you could argue about this, or you should be eating these nutrients, or you should be sleeping this amount of time, or whatever it is. People can argue over the details of what the specific benefits are for each individual. But I think at the end of the day, as long as we focus on the basics and really mastering those, whether it comes to your finances, whether it comes to your relationships, whether it comes to your health, whether it comes to your work, basic behaviors that I think people need to focus more on, rather than looking at the tiny little details and arguing and fussing over them. Really come back to the basics, really master them in a way that works for you. And then when you start to get the momentum, you can tailor it and personalize it a bit more. But I think really helping people to just get over that initial hurdle of starting is one of the biggest and most important things. No matter what the behavior is, it's the starting that often matters more.
Yeah. And then it's the maintenance, that accountability, that continuous improvement. Because I mean, I'm one of the worst ones for it, right? I can wake up full of enthusiasm on a Monday, and 4 weeks later I'll just hit a wall. And I just struggle to get past it. I'd always be the same, always kind of struggled. But every now and again, I'll kind of get over it. I'll be like, why did that even exist?
It's so easy to fall into this kind of all or nothing, on, off the wagon mindset. We're either doing it or we're not. And it comes from this perfectionist mindset of thinking that we need to do it properly. We need to go all in. There's no point doing it half-assed. We got to do it. Go big or go home. Whereas actually that makes it, we throw ourselves into it. We feel really motivated, feel really good about it, but it's not sustainable. And we find we don't enjoy it. It's too restrictive, whether it's about our diet, whether it's our exercise plan, whether it's a new thing we've started at work. We throw ourselves into it. It's not sustainable. We end up giving it up. And then we feel guilty for giving up. And it's this cycle of feeling, not this again. Okay, I'll start again next week. I'm a bit disappointed with myself, feel a bit guilty, a bit ashamed, which kind of feeds this negative, I suppose, relationship when it comes to the changing behaviors and our nutrition, for sure. So I think that's why I really like to focus on mindset, because it's about looking at how we make changes, not what changes we make. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So give us an example.
So for example, people, I don't know, especially with guys in the UK, we tend to, when we want to get healthy, lose a bit of weight, which we all know we want to be doing a bit more of. We think, okay, I need to go to the gym a bit more and cut out junk food. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to try and go 2 hours a day, perfect. And I'm going to cut out all junk food, cut out pasta. I'm going to cut out carbs. and I'm going to get a load of protein. Okay, it's a massive sudden shift, and it might work for a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. You might see a little bit of weight loss, but 99% of the time you end up back where you started, if not in a worse place, because you didn't enjoy it. You weren't able to make it fit with your preferences, your work needs. It's just not a lot of fun. So you end up back where you started, and then you feel guilty about it and think, oh, this is not again. And that's kind of what perpetuates that yo-yo cycle of dieting and kind of the regime of being on and off and the wagon. And actually what we want to do is start tiny, start so small that it's almost, you can't fail. It might feel like there's almost no point in doing it. So it's not going 2 hours for the gym. It's going on a 10-minute walk. Do that 3 days a week for the first week. Make it a 20-minute walk. Then add a half an hour gym session in. Build it up slowly. It takes years for, I suppose, bad habits to become instinctive and kind of completely ingrained. So it's going to take a long time to undo those bad habits and replace them. Yet we try and dive in straight away with a completely new regime. We got to take it brick by brick and build those foundations up. And that's going to make it more enjoyable, more sustainable, and going to have better kind of impact on our health overall and the people around us long term.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what? That's a great reminder, because I've just, as you're talking through that, it took me back to a time when I kind of really got into my fitness and started getting healthier again. And it was by doing exactly that. It wasn't the 1st of January, I'm going to run 30 odd miles a week or whatever it was that you kind of set yourself the target with at New Year's resolution. It was, well, actually, do you know, I've been doing this stuff already. Why not get up like 20 minutes earlier for the first week, and then the next week maybe get up a little bit earlier and then do a little bit more exercise, and I get a little bit better. And it just gradually builds. It's all habit stacking stuff, isn't it? Like the atomic habits kind of framework.
I love Atomic Habits.
Oh man,
love, we're going to talk about that for hours.
Such a great book.
What I do love is, trying to almost spend as much time planning as the actual doing. Well, we always say prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And there's a great quote that says, if I'm going to butcher this, okay, but if you got 10 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe, okay?
Yeah.
And it really, really does matter. We throw ourselves into it without much thought, without having plan Bs in place, without setting up sources of accountability, getting friends involved, without making it tailored to us. We just give it a go and then get disappointed when it doesn't work. Whereas actually spending a little bit of time planning in the first place, thinking, okay, what didn't work last time I tried this? What are my strengths? What have I got at my disposal to make this habit stick and make it enjoyable, make it useful, and then give it a go, and then learn from it. Repeat, run the experiment, and don't treat it like a failure. Treat it like an opportunity to learn. It's a bit cliche, but that's actually how you start to ingrain those habits long term. Something I'd like to ask you actually, Ian, as well.
Well, then, go for it.
What were those moments when it has worked for you? What were the specifics for you that made it stick, that actually allowed you to build that momentum with the behavior, but also the confidence that you're able to carry on that behavior and enjoyment in it?
Oh man, great question. Do you know, that's such a hard question to answer, because like if I'm kind of reflecting on times when I was really healthy and really fit and all the rest of it, like one of those times was a long time ago when me and the kid's mum kind of split up, and I'm like, right, focus on me, get yourself kind of into a better place mentally and all the rest of it, and was ridiculously fit very quickly, because all I did when the kids went here was work out and run and eat properly. But like more recently, it was going back to like what you said. It didn't feel like much of a stretch to go from getting up at 6:30 in the morning to actually getting up at 6. Because I'm one of the worst ones. Like I came across a book called The Miracle Morning a long time ago, where it's like the 5 a.m. club. Get up, do this, and I loved it, and it was amazing, and I really threw myself into it. Then I think I got like 5-6 weeks into it. Then I went on holiday for a week. Couldn't get back into it when I got back. Just couldn't do it. But I knew the positive impact that had. And since then, this is like 5-6 years ago, I thought another stuff I should be doing every morning, another stuff that I should be doing that's going to make an impact. But I just can't get all of it done. So I would very much sit there and think, well, if I can't get all of it done, what's the point? But the last time I really got into it, I'm like, well, and funny enough, like this week I've started kind of getting back into some of this stuff again. It's, well, just start with a little bit of it. Just start with a little bit of it and try and get up at 6. Like rather than get up at 5 like you were before, like and you were fit and healthy and all the rest, get up at 6. Or go for that walk with the dogs, or maybe do that little bit of a workout. And subconsciously, what I've started doing is I've already, because I'm doing that and I don't feel like it's enough this week, because I've just got started, it's given me the enthusiasm to be able to carry on next week and just do that little bit more. And then that'll do the same thing the week after, and it builds and builds. And before you know it, you're like, I mean, hopefully, touch wood, I'm going to be 10 weeks older in 10 weeks time anyway. You know, so why not be 10 weeks older with that little bit of extra progress each week, which then makes it sustainable.
Yeah, and I think often we do have such high expectations and put pressure on ourselves that we used to be able to do this, and therefore we should still be able to do this, right? But actually, we do need to regain that momentum. And it's not just the momentum of the habit itself, it's the momentum in our confidence and our ability to carry on with that behavior. And so if we set our intentions really high and we go all in straight away, it's not feasible, and then we fail, and then we feel like, oh, I can't do this. That makes us feel a bit rubbish. And then we think, oh, so this, I'm not going to carry on. So actually starting so small that it's almost impossible to fail starts to build that self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to actually set the goals that you achieve the goals that you've set yourself. Okay. So then you think, okay, I did that this week. That's fine. I'm going to push myself a little bit more and build it slowly and build that confidence as well as the momentum in that habit itself. So yeah, I think it sounds like you're able to do that now. And I suppose, like you said, you used to be able to do it the 5 a.m. thing, and now it's 6 a.m. And it's understanding that and giving ourselves permission to lower those expectations and say, yeah, I'm going to get there in the future, but I'm going to be patient with it. I think that the patience is something we often forget, and we want it right now. We want it quickly. We want it tomorrow. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And I think I read a quote from somebody else ages and ages ago. I can't remember who it was, but he said, don't negotiate with yourself. Like it's a given, and I'm the worst one for doing it, right? Because I'll get to like that 4-week wall that I hit that I mentioned earlier, and then I'll be like, oh, I'll just have a lie in tomorrow morning. But I've negotiated with myself, and I've already kind of said to myself, it's okay to have a day off, and it is okay to have a day off, right? Because you need that time. But then 2 weeks later, that'll be like, oh, I'll just have the weekend off, or I'll be half term with the kids, and then it'll be a week, and I'll be like, why have I let this slip again? You know?
Yeah, and I think giving yourself permission in advance, like having specific set rules, specific predetermined plan Bs in place. So for example, if I have a rule that if I'm going to bed, because I've got to work late, I go to bed past 11 or 11:30, I know that my sleep isn't going to be as good. I know that I'm not going to feel as motivated to get up and go to that gym session in the morning. I've given myself permission in advance not to do it. Okay. That means when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to grapple with the decision of whether I go or not. And therefore, when inevitably I choose not to, I don't feel like I've failed. And so I don't lose the momentum. And therefore, the next day when I wake up, I've not got that guilt feeling. And in fact, I'm feeling motivated knowing that I let myself have it off the previous morning and now I'm ready to go again. So it helps prevent this, what we call the what the hell effect. This moment where we go, sod it. I've ruined my day. I might as well ruin the weekend. I've had a couple of pints. Might as well have a few more. I've had a couple of biscuits. Might as well finish the pack. I've hit one snooze. I might as well hit it 10 more times. You just call the day a write-off, and you want to prevent that, because often you start the wrong way, then the tone of the day is set. It's very easy to fall into that trap. Whereas actually you want to prevent that by starting it off well, like you said, with a good morning routine, not a perfect one, but a good morning routine. It's good enough. And yeah, got to be patient and forgive yourself sometimes. We make mistakes. It's not always going to be perfect, but not letting that, getting on our own way and being our own worst enemy. For sure.
So I like that, because your own worst enemy is something I've heard a lot over the years. Like people say that to me all the time, like, oh, you're your own worst enemy. And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Do you know what I mean? And I think it is like exactly that, like you've just said there. It's that stuff. I've failed once, like I'll have a couple of beers tonight or whatever, but it's that pre-positioning of Wednesday is going to be a busy day, Thursday morning I'm having off, and that's been organized and planned and with it, because it takes the thinking away, doesn't it? Like you haven't got to think about it then.
Someone I used to work with, a very kind of a big name in the behavioral science application space, he developed loads of these programs. A guy called Stuart King. He came up with this methodology called the habit before the habit process, and it relies on a few kind of basic truths. And he talks about, as part of this, the two selves, the doing self and the planning self. Okay, the planning self is the rational, logistic one that has good intentions, knows what he's going to do, is feeling motivated, feeling capable. The doing self is the one that finds themselves in the moment, hitting snooze, having a few more pints, being annoyed at themselves, stressed, tired, angry, giving into temptation, making decisions that the planning self has said, no, we're not going to do that. And again, it's all about when we're in that planning self mentality, putting things in place so that when we know the doing self is likely to take over, we've already made it easier for us to make the right decision. Not having to grapple with that in the moment decision, because when willpower is low, which it often is, it's really hard to make the right choice. So we need to change things in our environment, need to change our beliefs, need to change our set sources of accountability. So for example, if you've texted your mate saying, hey, can we go for a run tomorrow morning, or can we just meet, or can you even just call to check in that I've gone on that run tomorrow morning? We've got that external source of accountability, which means no matter how, well, more often than not, no matter how unmotivated I feel, I don't want to let them down, even though it doesn't really matter if I let them down, I haven't let them down. But in my head, I've got this belief that I've said I'm going to do it, and therefore I need to do it. So putting things like that in place takes the decision away from the doing self, which then prevents that what the hell effect, that sod it syndrome, we call it sometimes, again, part of that framework that Stuart King developed. And it basically helps us understand our behavior and then helps us actually start to make change based off the back of it, which I think is so, so powerful. And again, why I'm passionate about this is that people argue over the details in the nutrition space and the benefits of particular exercises or the times of day we exercise or eat. But actually, what matters more is our mindset and our approach. And it's these sort of things which I love focusing on, and what I think more people, I wish there were more resources around this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came to it like mega late in life, like this kind of stuff, like the self-help stuff and reading, educating. For me, it was a real eye-opener once I started getting hold of it, and started with a book called Where's My Cheese? And like it was an MD at an old place I used to work. It was like, read this book, and I'm like self-help books. I'm like, nah, not really, not interested. He's like, just read it. So I read it, and then it was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it just kind of goes on from that. And the hard part for me about those books is I'm full of enthusiasm when I read them, and that knowledge retention 6 weeks further down the line, there's not a lot left. You know what I mean? And that's
for sure.
That's a hard part. Like, what would you say to somebody who's like struggling to make those changes and struggling to kind of maybe pull themselves out of a bit of a rut, maybe to take those first steps and think, I want to eat healthier, I want to start exercising, or I want to do something else? Like, what tends to be your start point if I was a client that came to you and said, I need some help?
Sure. It does, again, it sounds so simple and it sounds a bit kind of simplistic, but often the simple strategy is often the smartest. Start small, find something that works for you, play to your strengths. It doesn't matter really what you do. It matters that you've done it. Okay. So whether it's, and often we have expectations of ourselves of what we can be doing, and maybe social media tells us we should be doing this or we can be doing this, and being told to just go for a 10-minute walk sounds a bit rubbish. I could do way more than that. But actually, if that 10-minute walk is on part of your journey, one of the steps you need to do to be able to do that 10K down the line, it's an important part of the step. But if people are thinking, oh, I used to be able to run 10K, I don't want to just focus on doing a 10-minute walk, I could do better than that. But that perfectionist mindset, that thinking I need to be doing this, prevents them from doing anything. So just start. Do it badly. Doesn't matter what we do, it's the fact that we've done it. Again, like I said, bring sources of accountability in. Set up your environment to make it super easy to make the right decision, and hard to make the wrong decision. Okay, just really start slow and build it up, and trust yourself, trust the progress, trust that momentum that you're building. And often we think, oh, it's been a couple of weeks, not noticing any progress yet, not losing any weight. Stick with it. We're very impatient. Stick with it. Just trust the process, get some support, have them check in on you as well. And again, that momentum will come. The penny will drop. You will have those light bulb moments where you go, this is working. But yeah, keep it small, keep it simple, nothing too extreme. And often that we do make that mistake. So that's the first thing. Always that the approach, start small, start simple. That it's impossible to fail, and that builds that momentum and builds that confidence.
And we're the worst for that as men, aren't we? Because like we all still feel like we're 18 years old and we can go and run 5 miles and have a game of rugby or football on a weekend. But the reality of it is, if you're 40 odd years old, I mean, I'm 45 now, 44, wishing my life away. I'm not that person, and I can't do that anymore. And every now and again, you get that harsh reality check of it. And like, I tried getting back into rugby when I was 25, 26, and I got destroyed, played 2 games and got battered all over the place. And I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm too old for that. I wasn't. I could have done it, but the gap from where I am mentally to where I am physically was a real hard thing for me to overcome.
I think as blokes as well, we're not always very nice to ourselves. We have high expectations, and when we don't meet them, we beat ourselves up. We get disappointed, and that feeds this kind of negative cycle. Trying to be a little bit understanding, forgiving for ourselves. I know this is where we talk about a lot of the fluffy stuff when it comes to the approach and mindset, but making sure that you're not being your own worst enemy, whatever that means for you. Making sure that you're not getting in your own way. When you make a mistake, when you're not meeting the expectations that you set for yourself, it's okay. We're trying, we're finding what works for us, and we're moving forward. That's what matters. And if you can focus on that, you're going to get a lot further in the long run versus having this negative self-talk that I think a lot of us guys have. These are high expectations of what a man should be, what we're capable of. And yes, we used to meet those expectations perhaps, and now we're thinking, well, what am I doing at the moment when I can't? I think just trying to not let that narrative, not let that voice keep talking in your head, okay? And talking to people about it. Having these conversations, vocalizing that worry that you've got, that I don't feel like I'm myself anymore, okay? People change, we change over time, and that's okay. We've just got to grow and adapt and learn along the way.
Yeah.
Come to peace with that.
And social media has such a big impact on that, both positively and negatively, right? Because you can find the positive stuff, but like literally the next thing that you can click on could be like, if you're not earning 10 grand months every month and driving around in a Lamborghini, then you're a shit husband or whatever. And that's just like, that's horrendous stuff to read. And I come across that stuff and I'm like, there's young guys out there, like kids of the kids, my kids' age, that are watching that stuff and just getting sucked in by that because it's just download information, and just feel completely unsuccessful doing that. There's others out there that will never have the opportunity to be in that position because opportunity, and that's a big thing, and luck is a massive part for all of it, just doesn't exist where they are. And there's all the bullshit of like, oh well, you make your own opportunity. Well, no, you don't. And you're speaking from a position of privilege when you say that. You know, like
you can't really understand the difference in the opportunities there, and it's so true. Again, they say, yeah, what is it? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and yes, preparation is a key part of it, but it is undeniable that there is that opportunity, and some people just don't have the opportunity. And there's a framework in kind of behavioral science space called COM-B, which is capability, opportunity, and motivation. And it says that a behavior will happen when there is the physical and social kind of capability, when there is the opportunity for it to happen, and when there's the motivation. Three key necessary essential parts of the equation. And if one of them's missing, it won't happen. You can be motivated and you can be physically capable to do it, but if you don't have the opportunity to it, it's not going to work. Or you can have the opportunity and you can be capable, but if you're not motivated, you're not going to do it. And so it isn't like a key part of the equation that I think people just tend to jump over. And that's why social media is so, oversimplifies everything. It doesn't take context into account. And I think over long form conversations and one-to-one coaching and through therapy and through one-to-one support, people can really understand the complexity and how it applies to their situation. Whereas you're scrolling through TikTok, social media, you're getting this constant barrage of information that you think is true and real because other people are doing it, therefore I should be able to do it. When there's so much nuanced context that is just completely skipped over, which I think we're able to, as you grow older and as you expose to more of that, you can build that filter to know what's bollocks and what's real. I think a lot of people, a lot of teenagers, a lot of people growing up don't have that filter yet, and they're believing it, and it's causing huge issues in mental health as well. And I think if I can talk about this as well, again, I focus on, I used to focus a lot on the nutritional side of things and how to get people to eat healthier. But I think our lives are so complex and habits are so complex that if the problem for someone and they're not perhaps eating in the way they should be, that might not necessarily be a problem of their diet, or the way to fix it might not be to tell them what to eat. Maybe it's an issue that they're spending too much time on social media. Maybe it's an issue that their relationship with food needs fixing. Maybe it's an issue of their sleep pattern. And so it's such a connected kind of woven network of behaviors, and it all influences each other. And so just focusing on food or just focusing on stress or just focusing on finances doesn't always work. You do need to take a little bit into account and work out what the specific solution is for each person, which is complex, and companies can't do it. Coaches not always can do it. But that's where I think the real difference started to be made, because it takes into people's individual preferences, priorities, their contexts as well. So that's so important.
Well, I mean, there's got to be an element of self-reflection in that as well, though, hasn't there? You've got to be able to self-reflect and then look at yourself to be able to do it. And I know a lot of people that just can't do that.
Yeah,
and
actually,
that's hard, isn't it? That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and one of the things, again, people ask me as a nutritionist, what do you do with your clients? And I say, well, not much nutrition. I provide a space where they can actually self-reflect, learn from their mistakes, from their behaviors. It's supposed a part of motivational interviewing, providing a space where they can actually learn what their strengths are and start to build this intrinsic motivation. It's nothing to do with macronutrients. It's nothing to do with amino acid profiles of food. It's nothing to do with the time of what you eat. It's about, what's my relationship with food? Why do I crave this food? Why do I eat it? Is it the people around me? Is it just ingrained behaviors? Do I crave it because of an emotional reason? And asking those questions and providing a space for people to answer them matters more than just telling them what to do.
I mean, it's quite interesting you say that, because I was always brought up in a house of clear your plate. And you've got to clear your plate. If you whatever, and there were times like as a kid we'd be made to sit at the table and you're not getting up from that table until you've cleared your plate. And actually that's how I was brought up. So my kids have always been told, clear your plate. You eat what's on your plate, you stay there till it's gone.
My dad always used to say 1 million ants could feed off that for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. But then my partner Amy, I've got 2 stepkids as well, and she was brought up in the environment like, when you've had enough, that's enough. That's fine. And like the first few times I saw that, I was like, half of the table had clear plates, half of the table had stuff on the plates, and I'm like, she was like, I think what you're doing is incredibly damaging. She said that to me, because you're telling them to eat stuff that they might be full, they might have had enough. And it was a real kind of light bulb moment for me. And I'm like, well, where's the right answer in that? And I don't think there is, because that's ingrained from such an early age, your relationship with food and what that is.
I think part of it is, again, there's the ingrained behavior that we should always eat more, not to waste food, but also it's like I think a masculine thing where you want to have big portion sizes. I want to have a good fat steak because that's what men eat. And I think it's about rewiring those beliefs. And again, it comes down to our relationship to food. How do we see the food that we eat and what's on our plate? And I think portion size is a huge stumbling block and opportunity for men, because we tend to maybe have a rough idea of what we should be eating, and we can be eating a quite healthy diet. But purely in terms of numbers, if the amount of energy we're taking in through what we're eating, even if it's healthy, is greater than the amount of energy we're expending, we will gain weight. So you can be eating a very healthy diet, but actually numerically, if you're consuming more energy than you're expending, you will gain weight. And so people can get frustrated that I'm eating really healthy, but I'm gaining weight. What's happening? And it all comes down to the portion sizes. How much are you having? And so the solution there is, well, firstly, learning about what the real portion sizes are. Learning about food labels, learning about what is a serving size appropriate to me, and actually coming to terms with using strategies to help be more happy and comfortable with smaller portion sizes, and not thinking, oh, it's a tiny little portion. Can we, for example, bulk it out with vegetables, which are very low in calorie, high in fiber, super healthy for us, and actually can be really satiating, filling for us, and make a decent portion size, rather than packing in loads and loads of meat and having no veg. Great way to reduce the energy content, make it more healthy, and actually still have that satisfying portion size.
Do you think it's so confusing for people because there's so many different diets, different ways of eating, and vegan and carnivore, and with the old Atkins diet when that kind of first came out, and
absolutely.
and let's be real about it. These are like billion-pound industries that want you to try this stuff and almost fail, so you then go back and do it again because they'll make more money off you. Like there's just so much stuff out there, and is it information overload, and that's why people just trundle along?
There's a few problems with standard, like prescriptive diets. They one size fits all. They don't account for your personal preferences, priorities, your work needs, your socials, kind of preferences, your work times, and they, I suppose, rely on willpower. They say just do it. They don't teach you much about how am I going to make these behaviors sustain, what's going to work for me as an individual. They just say do it and don't fail. And then when you fail, you feel like you failed, you lose that motivation, you lose that confidence, and you start back where you started. And so I think there's a load of problems associated with standard diets. That's why it's more about shifting, I believe, to our approach to the more behavioral side of things. I think something else I'd like to say as well is about, with these diets, you can have, and I've thought a lot about this recently, you can have someone claiming they've been on a carnivore diet for 3 years, and so just eating like really loads of animal products, no plants, no fruit and veg at all. And they've had better sleep, they've lost weight, they've had more energy, more focus, clearer skin. And then you can get people on a vegan diet who've been on a vegan diet for 3 years and they've had more energy, better sleep, clear skin, more focus, lost weight. And again, how does that balance? How does that work out if they're completely polar opposites? And there's so many other diets, Atkins, low carb, paleo, intermittent fasting. What's going on here if they all seem to work in some cases and there's so much arguments? Trouble is, what people forget is that when you start a diet, like I said before, we often try to make lots of changes. When we're motivated to improve our diet, we're often sleeping a little bit better. We're often getting a bit more active. We're often overall eating less kind of processed and junk food. We're probably having a few more of the healthy nutrients. There's lots of changes that we're making, yet people pin it down to that one major identifiable characteristic of their diet. The fact that it's on a vegan diet, where actually they're eating less unhealthy food, they're exercising more, they're sleeping better, they're probably a little bit less stressed. And the carnivore diet, I'm eating mostly animal products. Yes, but the products that you're eating are less processed. You're getting a wider variety of nutrients. You're probably eating fewer calories as well. And so all of these other factors are so important, but we overlook them and we label it as just vegan, intermittent fasting, carnivore diet. This is what's made the difference. Well, actually, yes, they all might have individual pros and cons, but the majority of the basic health behaviors that we're talking about are more important. Don't forget those under the shadow of this big fancy name, the fad diet.
And there's a big wave of it now at the minute, isn't it? I mean, sure you've seen the guy Eddie on Instagram and kind of like banging the drum about what he's doing, and I get it. I understand why he does it. He's a kind of really polarizing kind of guy. It kind of comes across like he's challenging the rhetoric and kind of what people have done for years. Do you think that's a positive thing? Do you think it's a negative thing? Do you think actually for getting people to really start looking at the diet and look at this as a bigger picture? I see it as only being a positive thing. I might not agree with everything he says, but I think I see it as quite a positive thing.
One thing and I believe a lot of other kind of nutritionists would, and evidence-based health kind of practitioners say, is that any absolutes, anyone that says anything absolute in nutrition and health is probably not the most reliable information. Okay, and so it always depends on context. I think people's intentions are good. That Eddie Abu, for example, is trying to help people to eat consume less ultra processed food. That as an intention is really good because there's plenty of evidence to say that diets high in ultra processed foods increase their disease risk and can lead to contribute towards obesity, so it's important to help people reduce their ultra processed food consumption and have healthy alternatives. But to say that people should never consume any demonizes these foods. It supports people to have an unhealthy relationship with those foods. And a lot of the time, for price reasons, for affordability reasons, people do need to have some processed and ultra processed foods. Okay, but if the perfect diet is over here and people are currently over here, what we want to do is help people move generally in this direction. If by saying that all the points along this process are evil and you can't be consuming anything, people aim for over here. Again, it's such a massive shift, such a massive change that they can't do it, they can't sustain it, they don't enjoy it anymore, and they start back where they started. Okay, and so it's all about helping people, trying to make small changes here and there. For example, we go from, if we're a big fan of a certain packet of crisps, look for a lower salt option of that packet of crisps. If someone's fancying a certain pack of biscuits, I'm not going to suddenly go and suggest they have carrots and hummus for their snack if that's not what they're into. Can they look for a lower sugar option of those biscuits? Okay, so yes, technically they're still eating ultra processed food, but it's encouraging them and supporting them to make tiny steps in the right direction and build that confidence, rather than saying biscuits are bad, never eat them, never give your child these foods, because that's only going to support this negative relationship to those foods and make people feel guilty for having them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, it's one of the things that I do. Like there's certain times where like after tea, I'll sit in a sofa with a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I'm like, is it really that bad having a couple of biscuits? No. Is it really that bad open a packet of biscuits and 3/4 of the packet of biscuits gone? Yeah, absolutely. And it's that balance a bit in between, isn't it? And like if I'm used to sitting there every night and having 3/4 of a packet of biscuits, I'm all of a sudden not going to be able to say I'm not doing it at all. I'm not going to be able to do that because it's too far a jump, isn't it?
I think finding healthy alternatives is such a great step, and it's not about cutting it out. It's not about absolutely removing it at all. What I will say is that we are absolutely in an environment which is not set up to help us thrive. Okay, I think the annual marketing budget for Coca-Cola is $4 billion or something like that. So we are an environment where producers are constantly leading to or exposing us to advertisements, to marketing ideas that make us buy products. And these products are formulated in a way to make them so tasty, very moreish, very snackable. And there's always buy one, get one free offers. They're at tills, although there's some regulation coming in at the moment, which reduces their ability to market these products right at the point of purchase. But I think it's really important to consider the fact that, yeah, it is really hard for us not to buy those foods because we've been growing up eating them. We have associations with them. Those warming sweet treats, those cakes in the office, they're often the default products, and they're formulated to make them tasty, to make them cheap, and make them ubiquitous everywhere. And so it's difficult to avoid them, and that's why telling people they need to avoid them is innately a very, very difficult challenge. And saying that people must do that is innately not going to work, I think.
So do you think with all of these kind of diets and obviously the deterioration and the price point of being able to eat at such a healthy point, that's having an impact on mental health?
For sure. Again, people, it all feeds into each other. When you've had a bad sleep, for example, you wake up the next morning feeling a little bit stressed, your immune system's kind of not in the best place it needs to be. Perhaps you're a bit more, your inflammation levels are a bit higher, or it means that you're not motivated to have a healthy breakfast, you're not going to the gym. And therefore, perhaps later in the day, when you know you have that opportunity to save the money, you accidentally spent it, or you didn't call your friend that you were meaning to call them. And so what happens is that these all behaviors all start to link into each other. And like I said at the beginning, you can easily shift the tone of your day very quickly by making one bad decision. And that can feed into other bad decisions across the day. And that's why the mental health can be affected by, obviously, your sleep on a physiological level. A reduced kind of sleep quality impacts your ability for your kind of brain to function effectively. But also, if a bad sleep means that you might be eating unhealthier, and the fact you've eaten unhealthy, you feel guilty about that, or you didn't go to the gym, and that contributes indirectly as well to this belief that I'm stuck in the same pattern behavior. I can't do it. I'm just going to give up. I can't be bothered, and that again feeds into a negative mental health. So it does all impact each other, and that's why it's easy for good habits to unravel, and it's hard for habits to build. But actually, by improving sleep, you can start to improve your diet, and by improving your diet, you're fueling your exercise more appropriately, so you feel better at the exit when you're at the gym, and you're not exhausted, you're not feeling knackered, and that can actually help you sleep better, and that can make you do better at work the next day, which is going to support your mental health, which is going to make you feel better about your nutrition, it all links up, and you can start to slowly build that momentum brick by brick, as I keep coming back to.
See, I like how you've circled back around to that a few times. If just, you said at the start, to do what you can.
Do what you can.
And it's better. It's better. Yeah, but it's better than not doing anything at all. You know, and I think that's a really powerful message, and I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, because and I say this to clients all the time. It's that first step. You've got to take the first step.
And it does sound a bit like, I suppose, cliche. The first step of, I'm going to butcher this, the first step of a journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step. I've definitely butchered that, but it's so true. You can't start halfway into a journey. You have to start at the beginning. And we hate that because we want it. We're impatient, naturally. We want it to start tomorrow. But actually, just reminding yourself and having conversations with the people and vocalizing it can be really, really important. I think, if I may as well, another thing that's really useful, and I think blokes tend to be quite bad at, is talking to people, writing it down, maybe even go into the world of journaling. But basically, the idea of getting it down on paper, how we're feeling, what we're eating, when we're sleeping, allows it to become almost this a separate entity to us, a third person talking to us. Once it's down on paper, it's more objective. When stuff's all up in our head, it's hard to remember. It's a lot of biases going on, and so it's easy to change the story or how we interpret things. If you write down what you're eating, you actually start to realize, oh, maybe I'm having a little bit too much of that. Or when you start writing down what time you're going to sleep and waking up, you realize, oh, actually, that's not pretty good. Whereas we're much more easy to justify things when it stays in our head. So whether it's, I want to say, the word journaling, or spending a bit of time reflecting, dare I say, meditating, doing a bit of mindfulness exercise, all that fluffy stuff is so important. It's just about framing it in the right way. Spending time thinking about what's working for me. Okay. How can I objectively see this? And then starting to make the right choice based off that.